He locked his own mother in a freezing garage for 4 days, left her to starve, broke her rib. All for money. He thought he could break her. He was about to learn what breaking really felt like. If you're listening right now, subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. It means more than you know. Let me back up and tell you how my world shattered. My name is Michael Harrison. I own the Golden Fork, a high-end steakhouse in Chicago. I built it from nothing. 20 years of sweat, 16-hour days, missed holidays. It was all for them, Linda, my wife, and Ethan, our son. I was exhausted. 4 days at the National Culinary Expo, shaking hands, negotiating beef prices, surviving on bad coffee and adrenaline. It was a marathon, but I won. I secured deals that guaranteed our success for the next year. All I wanted was to get home. The air in O'Hare Airport always felt heavy, stale. I walked through the terminal, my garment bag digging into my shoulder. I pictured Linda waiting, a glass of Cabernet on the counter. That smile that still grounded me after 30 years. We were a team. I ran the restaurant, she managed our lives. I couldn't wait to see her, but the home I was returning to wasn't the one I left. The drive home was smooth, midnight on a Monday. The city lights blurred past the window. I was tired, but it was a good tired. The kind that comes after a victory. I pulled into our driveway. The suburbs, quiet streets, big oak trees casting long shadows. Our house sat at the end of the winding path. Safe, secure, or so I thought. As I cut the engine, something felt wrong, a prickle on the back of my neck. The kind you get when you know you're being watched. The house was dark, completely dark, no porch light, no soft glow from the living room. Linda always waited up, always. My stomach tightened. Where was she? Maybe she finally listened to me. Maybe she went to bed early. I grabbed my bags from the trunk. The exhaustion was settling deep in my bones. But that unease wouldn't go away. It clung to me like a cold sweat. I walked to the front door. The neighborhood was silent. Too silent. I reached for the handle. Locked. That was odd. Linda knew my flight landed an hour ago. I fumbled for my keys, the metal cold in my hand. The silence pressed in on me. Why did it feel so loud? I stepped inside. The air in the house was cold, stagnant. It didn't feel like home. It felt like a tomb. Linda, I called out, dropping my bags by the stairs. My voice echoed in the hallway. Nothing. I checked the kitchen. Immaculate. Almost too clean. The living room, empty. The mail stacked neatly on the hall table. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Her car was in the driveway. I saw it. So where was she? Panic started to rise in my chest. A cold fist squeezing my heart. I was about to head upstairs. That's when I heard it. It wasn't a normal sound. Faint. Muffled. Like a sick animal, trapped somewhere. A weak, rhythmic tapping, followed by a low, broken whimper. My blood ran cold. I froze. Every muscle tense. I listened. The sound came again. Louder this time. A desperate scratching. It was coming from the attached garage. I sprinted. The door connecting the kitchen to the garage was heavy oak. I grabbed the handle and yanked. It didn't budge. Locked. Not just locked. The deadbolt on the kitchen side was engaged. Why would anyone lock the garage from the inside of the kitchen? It made no sense. Terror clawed at my throat. "Linda, are you in there?" I shouted, banging on the wood. The crying hitched. It turned into a desperate, choked sob. "Michael! Oh, thank God! Michael, help me!" The voice was unrecognizable. Hoarse, strained, terrified. But it was Linda. Adrenaline flooded my system. Hot and terrifying. My hands shook. I couldn't get the deadbolt unlocked fast enough. My fingers felt numb. Clumsy. "I'm coming, Linda. Hold on." I finally twisted the lock and threw the door open. The smell hit me first. A wall of foul air. Gasoline, stale sweat, and human misery. The garage was pitch black. The only light came from the kitchen behind me, cutting a weak rectangle into the darkness. "Linda, where are you?" Another cry. Weaker. It came from the far corner, behind my workbench. I fumbled for the light switch. I hit it. The fluorescent bulbs flickered. They buzzed, struggled, then flared to life. The light was harsh, unforgiving. And then I saw her. She was huddled on the cold concrete floor, wrapped in a dirty, oil-stained moving blanket. She looked small. So small. Her hair, usually so perfect, was matted with dust and sweat. When she looked up, her face was terrifyingly pale, stained with tears and grime. Her eyes were swollen almost shut. But that wasn't the worst part. There was a dark, ugly bruise forming on her cheek, purple and black. Her lip was split, blood had dried on her chin. She looked broken. "Michael," she choked out, her voice raw. She tried to stand. Her legs buckled. She collapsed back down, sobbing uncontrollably. She clutched her side, her breath catching in pain. I dropped to my knees. My mind couldn't process it. This was a nightmare. Our safe home, our perfect life, shattered. "Linda, my God, what happened? Who did this to you?" She was shaking violently, trembling with cold and exhaustion. She felt frail under my hands, dehydrated. I reached to pull her close. She flinched, violently. She scrambled backward, away from me, a terrified animal reaction. That flinch shattered my heart into a million pieces. "It's okay, honey. It's me. It's Michael. You're safe," I whispered, my voice thick. She focused on my face. Recognition dawned in her swollen eyes. Then she collapsed against me, her body convulsed with tears. Heavy, racking sobs. "I've been in here," she gasped. "Since you left. Since Friday morning." Friday. I left for Chicago on Friday morning. 4 days. My wife had been trapped in our own garage for 4 days. Alone, in the dark, starving. While I was shaking hands and sampling wine, the guilt hit me first, heavy and suffocating. I should have protected her. Then the rage came, hot and blinding. It surged through me, burning away the shock. I looked around the garage, the cage she had been kept in, an empty water bottle, a few granola bar wrappers, barely anything. This wasn't an accident. This was torture. "He left her here to die." "Who locked you in here, Linda? Tell me," I demanded. My voice was tight, dangerous. My mind raced. A break-in? A robbery? She hesitated. Her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and something else. Shame. Profound, heartbreaking shame. She didn't want to say the name. She didn't want to admit the truth. "Tell me," I insisted, my voice dropping low. "I need the name Linda." She took a shuddering breath. The name landed like a shard of glass in the quiet garage. It was Ethan. Ethan. Our son. Our only child. The world stopped. The buzzing lights. The smell of oil. Everything faded. Only those 3 words remained. It was Ethan. "Why?" I whispered. The word felt ripped from my throat. The betrayal was too massive. Why would he do that? Linda closed her eyes. Fresh tears spilled down her bruised cheek. "He needed money, Michael. A lot of it." Her voice was barely a whisper. "He came to me right after you left. He said he was in trouble. Real trouble. Trouble. Ethan's favorite word. He demanded I give him the access codes to the restaurant's emergency account. The emergency account. Nearly $100,000. Ethan knew Linda had the access. I told him no," Linda continued, her voice trembling. "I told him we had to talk to you first. We couldn't just drain the business account." She pulled back, her eyes wide with remembered terror. "He just snapped. Michael, he lost it." Her voice broke. "He started screaming at me. Horrible things. That we were selfish. That we owed him." She lifted her arm, showing me the deep, purple bruises on her forearm. "Fingerprints." He grabbed me. She touched the bruise on her cheek. "He hit me." My ears rang. For a second I forgot how to breathe. My own son hit his mother. "He dragged me out here. He said he wouldn't let me out till I gave him the codes." She choked on the final words. "He wanted to break me, and when she resisted, he kicked her. That's when he broke her rib. He wanted to break the woman who gave him life. For money." The hot rage cooled instantly. It hardened into something cold, sharp, terrifyingly clear. A resolve settled over me. A primal need to protect, to avenge. I carefully lifted Linda. She was light, too light. I carried her out of the garage, away from the darkness, back into the house that no longer felt like a home. It felt like a crime scene. I took her upstairs, gently placed her on her bed. She winced as I laid her down. "I'm calling 911, I said. My voice sounded distant. "No, Michael, wait," she pleaded. She grabbed my hand. Her grip was weak, desperate. Please? He's our son. Just talk to him first. Maybe he was desperate. Maybe he didn't mean to hurt me. I looked at her. The mother instinct overriding the trauma, the betrayal. She was already forgiving him. But I wasn't. Look at what he did to you, Linda. My voice cracked. He left you in a freezing garage for 4 days. He hit you. He kicked you. He tortured you. I took a deep breath. There is no excuse for this. None. I pulled my hand away and dialed 911. I had to protect her, even from her own forgiveness. The next few hours were a blur, flashing red and blue lights. The concerned faces of the paramedics. They loaded Linda onto a stretcher. She looked so small under the blankets. I followed the ambulance to the hospital. The sterile smell of antiseptic burned my nostrils. I sat in the waiting room. It was 3 a.m. The hospital was quiet. My mind was screaming. The diagnosis was severe. Dehydration, malnutrition, shock, and the fractured rib. The doctor explained it was likely from a focused blow. A kick. My son kicked his mother. The thought made me physically sick. I gave a statement to Officer Miller, a seasoned cop, tired eyes. He had seen it all, but even he looked grim. Your son did this? He asked, double-checking his notes. Yes, I replied. My voice was flat. Emotionless, kidnapping, assault, false imprisonment. Felonies. These words now applied to my son. We'll issue a warrant for his arrest immediately, Mr. Harrison. Officer Miller said. We'll find him. But I knew Ethan. He was charming, manipulative, slippery. He would run. He would claim it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. He always had an excuse, and we always accepted it. When they finally let me see Linda, she was hooked up to IVs. Her face was cleaned, but the trauma in her eyes remained. Did they find him? She asked weakly. Not yet, I replied, taking her hand. I sat there long after she fell asleep. The steady beep of the heart monitor, the only sound. I looked at the bruises on her face. My son did this. The boy I taught to ride a bike. He was dead to me. Jail was too quick. Too easy. A legal battle would drag Linda through the mud. Force her to relive the trauma in a public courtroom. And jail, a warm bed, 3 meals a day. A chance for parole. That wasn't justice. That wasn't enough. A plan began to form in the dark corners of my mind. Cold, calculating, cruel, Ethan wanted money. He wanted control. He had treated his mother like an animal. I would treat him like one. I would take everything from him. I would strip away every comfort, every safety net, every connection. I would turn his life into a nightmare. And when he was broken, utterly and completely, then the police could have what was left. The old Michael was gone. This new one was born in the darkness of that garage. And he was just getting started. The next morning, I didn't go to the restaurant. I went to see David. David wasn't just my lawyer. He was my oldest friend. The godfather to the monster I had raised. His office was downtown, sleek and modern. He took one look at my face and ushered me in. Michael, I heard about Linda. The police called me. I am so sorry, he said. He poured me a coffee. I didn't touch it. I need your help, David, I said. My voice was low, steady. I want to destroy him. David paused. He sat down and started cleaning his glasses, a nervous habit he'd had for years. He saw the darkness in my eyes. Michael, the police are handling it, he said carefully. He's facing serious charges. Let the justice system do its job. It's not enough, I interrupted. He locked his mother in a garage for 4 days. I want him to know what it feels like to have nothing, to be helpless, terrified, and alone. I was about to cross a line I never knew existed. I laid out my plan, systematically. First, the job. He's still on the payroll at the Golden Fork. Manager trainee, a fake job I gave him. Fire him, effective immediately. Prufed David nodded slowly. He picked up a legal pad. Done. Second, the accounts. He has a debit card linked to our joint savings. And a Highlights credit card I co-signed for. Freeze the debit card. Cancel the credit card. Report it stolen. David stopped cleaning his glasses. Michael, if he's desperate, he might do something reckless. I want him desperate, I said, cutting him off. My voice didn't waver. I want him cornered. Third, the condo. Ethan lived rent-free, in a luxury apartment. I paid the lease. Contact the landlord. I'm breaking the lease. Today, have the locks changed by noon. Have his belongings boxed up and put in storage. David put his pen down. Are you sure about this, Michael? This is scorched earth. This is nuclear. There's no coming back from this. I thought about Linda, huddled on the concrete, flinching at my touch. He kicked her, David. He left her to starve. I stood up. I am absolutely sure. The execution was swift. By noon, Ethan Harrison was jobless, cashless, and homeless. I was sitting by Linda's bedside when my phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. My hand shook. The urge to answer was overwhelming, to scream, to unleash the rage boiling inside me. But David had advised silence. Silence was colder. Silence was power. I pressed ignore. He called 7 more times. I watched the screen light up, then fade to black. Then the text started. First, confusion. Dad? My card isn't working. Weird glitch? Then annoyance. Call me back. This is important. I look like an idiot at the register. Finally, panic. I can't get into the apartment. The key won't work. What's going on? Dad, I need help. I deleted every message. The silence was my weapon, and I was wielding it like a scalpel. But my work wasn't done. Cutting him off was just the beginning. I needed to know why. Why did he need the money so badly? Badly enough to resort to torture. Ethan was lazy, entitled, spoiled. But he wasn't usually violent. Something had pushed him over the edge. I left the hospital. I told Linda I needed to check on the restaurant. I lied. I went to the condo. The landlord had already changed the locks. I stepped inside the space that had been my son's sanctuary. The life I had funded. It was a mess. Expensive clothes strewn across the floor. Empty champagne bottles. The massive TV I bought him for Christmas. It sickened me. The waste. The entitlement. While his mother starved, I started digging. I tore through his drawers. His desk. I found bank statements. Overdue notices. Maxed out credit cards. I didn't even know existed. Thousands in debt. But that wasn't it. This was typical Ethan. Messy. Irresponsible. But not violent. I needed the real reason. I checked his laptop. Password protected. I looked around the room, searching for anything hidden. And then I found it. Under his mattress. The classic hiding spot. A little black notebook. I opened it. It wasn't addresses. It was a ledger. Bets. Sports teams. Horses. Underground poker games. Numbers running into the tens of thousands. He was gambling. Heavily. My stomach twisted. This was worse than I thought. I turned to the last page. A name and a figure, circled in red ink. Mark, $75,000. Due Friday. Friday. The day I left for Chicago. The day he locked Linda in the garage. $75,000. If the story's got you hooked, hit that subscribe button. The realization hit me hard. My blood ran cold. I knew Mark. Everyone in the restaurant business knew Mark. He wasn't a bank. He was a loan shark. A dangerous, ruthless man. He collected debts with baseball bats and blowtorches. The twist tightened in my gut like a vice. Ethan wasn't just greedy. He was terrified. He had crossed the wrong people, and he had sacrificed his mother to save his own skin. A sickening realization washed over me. Either Mark's men would find Ethan, especially now that he was on the streets, vulnerable, broke. If they found him before the police did, he wouldn't just be arrested. He would be hospitalized. Or worse, a dark primal part of me whispered that he deserved it. Street justice. But the father in me recoiled. I couldn't let that happen. Not because I wanted to save him, but because I wanted to control the destruction. I wanted my revenge to be precise, calculated, complete. I had to control the chaos. I pocketed the notebook. I had leverage now, and a new target. My next target was his image. His social life. Ethan prided himself on his reputation. The popular guy, the one with a beautiful girlfriend. Jessica. Jessica was a socialite. Old money. She loved the lifestyle Ethan pretended to have. The VIP clubs, the designer clothes, all funded by me. She was part of the problem. I called her. She answered brightly. Hi, Mr. Harrison. How was Chicago? Her cheerful tone made me sick. Jessica, we need to talk, I said, my tone cold. Meet me at the coffee shop near your apartment. In 10 minutes. Come alone. I hung up before she could ask questions. I waited for her. She arrived late, looking nervous. Her designer handbag clutched tightly. She kept checking her reflection in the window, vain even in a crisis. What's going on? She asked, sliding into the booth. Ethan's been acting really weird. He won't answer my calls. Ethan is in trouble, I said. No small talk. And if you stay with him, you will be too. I told her everything. I laid it all out, no mercy. I told her about the gambling, the debt. I showed her the notebook. $75,000, I said. Owed to Mark. Her eyes widened. She knew the name. Mark, the loan shark? She whispered. Yes. I explained the danger. The kind of man Mark was. She looked terrified. Good. And then I told her about Linda. I described how Ethan had locked his mother in the garage. 4 days. The bruises. The fractured rib. How she was in a hospital bed. Her face went pale. He said she went to visit her sister, Jessica whispered, her voice trembling. He lied to me. He always lies. He lied to everyone, I said. The police are looking for him. Mark's collectors are looking for him. I leaned closer. He is dangerous, Jessica. He is desperate. And he is broke. That last part was the kicker. Jessica didn't do broke. She looked down at the diamond bracelet Ethan had given her. Likely bought with money stolen from me. She was shallow, but she wasn't stupid. She saw the sinking ship. She wanted off. I had no idea, she said. Tears welled up in her eyes. The manipulative kind. I can't be with someone who would do that. To his own mother. She paused, then added the truth. And I can't be with someone who is broke. The social cut was complete. When I returned to the hospital, Linda was awake, looking slightly better. A nurse was checking her vitals. Sarah, young, kind. She's doing better, Mr. Harrison, Sarah said softly. But the physical healing is the easy part. She looked at me pointedly. The psychological trauma, that takes time, patience, and gentleness. It felt like a warning that my approach might be too harsh. I ignored it. I was running on rage, not gentleness. Michael, Linda said when the nurse left. She twisted her wedding ring nervously, a habit when she was anxious. I've been thinking, maybe we shouldn't press charges. Maybe we can just get Ethan help. Therapy. Rehab. I felt a stab of frustration, her unending forgiveness. It was what had enabled Ethan all these years. We had always bailed him out, always cleaned up his messes. Not this time. Her plea for mercy tore at me. But forgiveness without consequences was just enablement. And I would not enable this monstrosity. I'm handling it, Linda, I said. My voice firm but gentle. We need to ensure he can never hurt you again. Just focus on getting better. I lied again, while simultaneously planning the next phase of his destruction. The career demolition. Ethan had a degree in hospitality management. Thanks to the tuition I paid. He thought he deserved to run a 5-star establishment. No work ethic. No experience. I would ensure he never worked in this city again. Not even as a dishwasher. I spent the next day making calls. I used my connections, my reputation, 20 years of integrity. I was cashing in my chips. I called suppliers, other restaurant owners, hotel managers. I implied Ethan had stolen from the business, that he was unreliable, untrustworthy, dangerous. The blacklist was effective immediately. David called me that evening. His voice was strained. Michaels, you need to slow down, he warned. What you're doing with the blacklisting, it's crossing the line. If Ethan finds out, he could sue for defamation. You're risking your business. Was I going too far? Was I risking Linda's security? Our life? All for revenge? I looked at the photo of Linda on my desk. Before the bruise, before the fear? The risk was worth it. I don't care, I said. Let him sue. I'll bury him in legal fees. I hung up the phone. I was committed. Ethan was isolated. No money. No home. No girlfriend. No job prospects. He was a pariah. But it still wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel the fear he had inflicted on Linda. I wanted him to know what it felt like to be hunted. I bought a burner phone at a gas station. I made a few more calls. Anonymously, I leaked information about Ethan's whereabouts, the bars he frequented, the cheap motel where I suspected he was hiding. I didn't call the police. I called Mark's collectors. I was using the tactics of the criminals I despised, manipulating the situation, orchestrating a confrontation that could turn violent. I realized that, in my pursuit of justice, I was walking a fine line between man and monster. Was this justice, or had I become the very thing I was trying to destroy? The question haunted me, but it didn't stop me. I became a shadow in my own life, managing the restaurant, visiting Linda, and orchestrating my son's downfall. I felt detached, numb. I was running on fumes and fury. One afternoon, I drove to the motel I had tipped Mark's men about. A rundown place on the edge of town. I parked across the street, hidden behind tinted windows. I waited. I felt like a predator stalking its prey, and the prey was my own flesh and blood. A black sedan pulled into the parking lot. Two large men stepped out, built like linebackers. One of them, Vince, had a scar running down his cheek. Mark's enforcer. They walked to room 12. They didn't knock.
Vince kicked the door open.
I couldn't hear the shouting, but I could imagine it. A few minutes later, Ethan stumbled out of the room, clutching his stomach, his face pale with terror. Vince and the other man followed him. Vince grabbed him by the hair, threw him against the wall. A few sharp punches to the gut. Ethan crumpled to the ground. The men spat on him. Then they drove away. They had delivered a warning. A taste of the fear he had inflicted on his mother. A wave of nausea washed over me. I felt a sickening mix of satisfaction and horror. This broken, trembling creature was my son, the boy I had loved, and I was the one who had unleashed the wolves on him. The guilt was paralyzing, but the memory of Linda's bruised face hardened my resolve. He deserved this. It was time for the final act. Linda was discharged a week later. She was still frail, quiet. She jumped at every sudden noise. The house felt different, colder, emptier. We were safe, but we were broken. When she walked into the living room, she stopped short. "Where are the photos?" she asked. Her voice trembled. She looked at the empty spaces on the mantelpiece, the bare walls where the family portraits used to hang. I had removed every trace of Ethan from the house. The graduation photos, the childhood drawings, all gone, boxed up in the attic, erased. "Michael, why did you take down his pictures?" she demanded. Tears welled up in her eyes. "He is still our son." This was the confrontation I had been dreading. The collision of her grief and my rage. She didn't know the details, the blacklist, the calls to Mark's men, but she knew I was hunting him. I was destroying the family I was trying to save. "Because the boy in those pictures is gone," I said. My voice was cold, final. "The boy we loved died the moment he locked you in that garage." Linda stared at me. She didn't recognize me, and in that moment I didn't recognize myself. The nightmare I had constructed for Ethan was working. He was broken, desperate. The police were closing in. Mark's patience was running out. It was time for the curtain call. It happened late one Tuesday night, nearly 2 weeks after I returned from Chicago. I was closing up the Golden Fork. I stepped out into the alleyway behind the restaurant, locking the heavy steel door. The cold night air hit my face. A figure emerged from the shadows, huddled near the dumpsters. "Dad," it was Ethan. He looked haggard, thin, his eyes darting nervously. He was wearing a dirty hoodie. He looked homeless. He looked terrified. "Ethan," I said. My voice was flat. I felt nothing. No rage, no pity. Just a cold, aching emptiness. "Dad, you have to help me," he pleaded, stepping closer. He smelled of sweat, fear, and stale alcohol. "I messed up. I know what I did to Mom was unforgivable. But you have to help me." He confessed everything. The gambling, the debt, the desperation. He apologized, a real apology this time, born out of his own downfall. But it was too late. "They're going to kill me, Dad," he whispered. Tears streamed down his face. Genuine tears. "Mark's men. They said I have until tomorrow to pay, or they'll put me in the hospital. Please, I need money, just enough to get out of town." I looked at my son, and I saw a stranger, a coward, a monster, but also a broken young man. "My broken young man, you locked your mother in a garage for 4 days," I said, my voice low and steady, repeating the words like a mantra, reminding myself why I had done this. "You left her there to starve. You bruised her. You fractured her rib." "I know," I panicked. He screamed, his voice cracking. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared. "And I didn't panic when I found her," I continued. "I took action. I made choices. I stepped closer. I wanted him to see the coldness in my eyes. I made choices, Ethan, to protect my family. From you." It was time he knew the truth. I revealed everything, the frozen accounts, the changed locks, the eviction, the calls to Jessica, the blacklist, and the anonymous tips to Mark's collectors. I watched as the realization dawned on his face, the horror replacing the desperation, the understanding that his downfall wasn't an accident. It was an execution. "You did this?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "You ruined my life? My own father? You ruined your own life." "Ethan, I just accelerated the process." I looked him straight in the eye. "I turned your life into a nightmare, just like you turned your mother's into one." At that moment, a black sedan pulled up at the end of the alley, its headlights blinding. 2 men stepped out, Vince and his partner, Mark's men. Ethan froze, his eyes wide with terror. He looked at the men, then back at me, pleading silently. This was the moment, the culmination of my revenge. I could let them take him. I could walk away, but I looked at Ethan. The fear in his eyes mirrored the fear I had seen in Linda's eyes. And the garage. I realized I couldn't let him go like this. Not to them. He needed to face real justice. Legal justice. Accountability. The nightmare had to end. The right way. The sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder, closer. Flashing blue and red lights illuminated the alley. 2 police cars screeched to a halt, blocking the exit, trapping Mark's men and Ethan. I had called the police before leaving the restaurant. I had orchestrated this final confrontation. It was over. "Ethan Harrison," hands where we can see them. Officer Miller yelled, his gun drawn. Ethan raised his hands slowly, the fight draining out of him, replaced by defeat. He was broken. Vince and his partner cursed. They tried to run, but the other officers intercepted them. I watched as they handcuffed my son, pushing his head down, as they shoved him into the back of the police car. He looked back at me one last time, his eyes filled with a mixture of betrayal, hatred, and a terrifying understanding. I felt no triumph, no victory, only the cold satisfaction of a job well done, and the heavy weight of the consequences. The trial was quick. The media circus was brutal. The Golden Fork kidnapping. They called Ethan the garage monster. Ethan took a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming. Linda didn't have to testify. I made sure of that. The prosecutor detailed the cruelty of Ethan's actions, the betrayal of his own mother. The courtroom was silent. The judge was unforgiving. The sentence, 10 years in state prison. When the verdict was read, I sat in the courtroom, Linda beside me. Holding her hand, we watched as Ethan was led away, wearing an orange jumpsuit. His face pale and emotionless. He didn't look at us. He never looked back. The aftermath was quiet, a deafening silence that filled the house. The restaurant continued to thrive, but the success felt hollow. The taste of victory was ashes in my mouth. Linda healed. Physically, the bruises bruised, the rib mended, but the emotional scars remained. The distance between us remained, a scar that would never fully heal. We were connected by the trauma, but separated by the vengeance. She knew the full extent of what I had done, the ruthless way I had orchestrated his downfall, the darkness I had embraced, and she couldn't forgive me for it, just as I couldn't forgive Ethan. We existed in a fragile truce, bound by 30 years of marriage and the shared tragedy of our son's betrayal. We never spoke of Ethan again. His name was erased from our lives. The attic remained locked. Months turned into years. Life slowly returned to a new normal, a quiet, somber normal. We found a routine, but the joy was gone, replaced by a quiet endurance. One evening, I was closing the restaurant late. The silence was heavy. I walked back to my office, the weight of the past few years settling on my shoulders. I felt old, tired. I looked at the new family photo on my desk. Oh, just me and Linda, smiling faintly. The space where Ethan should have been conspicuously empty. I thought about the rage that had consumed me. That morning, I found Linda in the garage. I said about the darkness I had discovered within myself, the capacity for absolute destruction, the monster hiding beneath the surface. I didn't regret it. I had to do it. I had to protect Linda. And in a strange, painful way, I had to protect the world from the monster I had raised. Sometimes, love isn't about forgiveness. Sometimes, it's about justice. Sometimes a father has to turn his child's life into a nightmare to ensure that the rest of the world can sleep peacefully. But as I turned off the lights and locked the door, I knew the truth. The nightmare hadn't just been Ethan's. It had been mine too, and some nightmares never truly end. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.